Okay, thank you for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. Here's a scene, kind of a whimsical scene using a Nebula and star stamp, and kind of some more terrestrial grounded imagery in the form of clouds and this eagle and these overhanging branches. To create this finished result of kind of a glowing nebula in the background and some darker silhouettes in the foreground, to use this silence here quote stamp that I thought merged very well with the I don't know, kind of the theme of the scene. But the biggest thing about this video today is I've used this makeup applicator to apply my colors and inks into over the top of my stamped imagery. And this was given to me by a fellow stamper at the Carson Rubber Stamp Convention this past weekend. She asked me if I'd ever used one. I hadn't. I think I've seen these before, though, and they come in different sizes and shapes. And she picked these up very inexpensively somewhere online, and asked me if I'd like to try it out. I tried it out and I liked it. She gave me this to have. Thank you very much. And I've used it in the scene right here. It works differently than the Colorbox stylus still. The concept is the same, but the application feel is a little bit different. These are these kind of little fibers. I don't know what I think they're like a polyester fiber of some sort or something like that sort. This is ochre stained or something like that. I guess that's just the color that these applicators come in. But the feel is different than, applying ink with a sponge tip like this. But it just has a different feel. It's going to be a little bit of a different movement. It's really great, though. You don't get these shapes of the applicator. I don't get the shapes of my applicator because I use enough of my base coats, but if someone's using some of these, it's really very forgiving. It takes a little bit longer if you're doing the saturation or the amount of ink saturation that I use. But what I say on the end of this video is I think that the best use of this for me, okay, you can do the whole thing like this, like I did on this one. But for me, I would probably use, some of the stylus tool or, sponge style application methods with my first couple colors, because I get a really good thick saturation typically with those inks. And then I apply more, but this one's really great for like the vignette effect, the really dark edges, that you might want, or that I like in my scenes, okay? Because it gives a really nice, just very light, airy type of application of it, okay? And I can do that around the entire perimeter and really give this card a nice vignette effect, okay? But anyways, if you choose to watch this video, you'll see how I use it and kind of what I come across when using it. I did, I think, one card with it at the show this past weekend, and yeah, it works very nicely. So it's nice to have options, and especially if you're in an area where you can't get a hold of, different applicators like this, then the more kind of widely, spread types of tools out there that are available to us, just like in different areas of the world. In fact, I would imagine you can get these overseas just as easily as we can get it here, or something very similar, that you can use for your application process. On here I'm doing it on glossy cardstock, but you can certainly do it on matte cardstock, and maybe matte cardstock or a textured cardstock would be, something that's, perfect for something like this that can get into those grooves and whatnot, where something like this, maybe you'd have to squeeze it in there a little bit more. So anyways, I would just playing around with it and giving it a test out if you've tried these before, or if you haven't, or if you're just curious about them. Alright, so anyways, hope you enjoy the video if you choose to watch it, and thanks as always for tuning into the channel. Okay, let's see what we can do here with a new tool for me, and that's this little makeup applicator here. It was given to me by someone, a fellow stamper at the Carson Rubber Stamp Convention this past weekend. Thank you. I don't know your name, but I certainly want to thank you for this. She came in on Saturday and asked me if I'd ever used any of those, and I hadn't. And she was going to return on Sunday and said she'd bring one in and for me to test out, and I tested it out, and it works pretty good, and she said I can have it. I didn't really want to accept it, but she said, you know, she insisted. So thank you very much again. Appreciate it if you ever watch this video. I'm going to do something with this Nebula here. It's called a Nebula with Star. It's designed after the Scorpion Nebula. If any of you are kind of enjoy astronomy or deep space figures, I don't even know that nebula. It was in a book of mine when I was looking up and researching some nebula and deep space images to work on some designs years and years ago. But I've always loved deep space imagery, things that are coming back from Hubble and various different types of telescopes. I used to subscribe to Sky and Telescope magazine. I don't know, I've just always loved that type of imagery. Okay, I've stamped this out in a dark blue. I used a fusion of, or a combination of blue and Prussian blue. I was just going for something very dark because I'm going to be running in a lot of color into this, and dark colors, and I want my impression to be dark enough to where, you know, when I start bringing in additional colors, it will stand up to those colors without, you know, disappearing. So, in other words, I mean, I could stamp that out very light, but if I start bringing in darker colors over it, you know, we'll quickly lose our imagery. So, you wouldn't be able to get too dark in terms of additional tones if you stamped it, you know, in a very light value to begin with. Okay. So this is while this is a very deep space image, I am going to use some additional sky imagery around. I could use things like the Milky Way if you're familiar with that. I'm thinking about some clouds or something like that up there. But I think I'm going to bring in some foreground elements into this, so it'll just be more kind of a whimsical image. You know, while it's deep space, but you know, it's kind of grounded here with earthly elements. Okay, so here's my cloud cumulus, and I'm overlapping a good, I don't know, in some cases, 1.5 to 2 inches into the nebula with star here. And I'm re-inking in between impressions. Okay, now this is a glossy cardstock that I'm working on. If you're working on a matte cardstock, it would open up the possibilities for a lot of other media. But if you want, you know, real kind of dense clarity of the impression, I would recommend going with a coated cardstock. And if you're not, you can get some interesting effects as well, like with different types of papers, linens of all things. Someone in the Facebook group uses a lot of textured paper, and they look really, really cool in terms of the effects she's achieving. But this one right here, I'm using a glossy coated cardstock. There's matte coated cardstocks as well, and those kind of open up the possibilities for things like pastels and soft media such as colored pencils that you can color in with, all kinds of things. Okay, so I have my nebula kind of effect, and we have these clouds around it. I'm going to bring in a lot of different colors into this, and combinations of colors, so I'm thinking about going fairly dark with this one, but I want to start off with some lighter tones to begin with. Alright, now I didn't really clean this off. Now that looks, you know, like it has a bunch of ochre color on it, right? But I guess this is the way they come. That's what I was told. And I I guess there's all kinds of different brands of these too, all right? From what I've been told. I haven't even looked these up online, okay? Anyways, someone gave this to me, and like I said, someone else came in and they said, oh, something about this brush here, and I said, well, someone gave it to me, and she said, that's like an $8 brush. And I said, well, this person that gave it to me told me they bought 8 for $12 or something like that, or it was 12 for $8, or I don't know, one of those. Is that what I just said? Anyway, it was 8 for $12 or 12 for $8. I can't remember. And I guess there's maybe a variety of sizes, but I think she said she bought the same size, so I don't know anything about it. I don't know the different brands. I don't know what the brand this is. It's like a generic. It doesn't have any brand labeling on it. Okay, so this is a tea dye. Okay, I'm planning on bringing in things like violets and purples, violets, maybe some blues into this, but I'm bringing in this tea dye. I think it'll give it a kind of a nice earthly and warm tinge to certain areas. I'll be bringing in and layering a lot of different colors into it. Okay, now, I usually use my stylus tools, okay? They're like sponges on a wand, you know, like that, which makes, when you ink these up, like a ink pad on a stick. They're very comfortable to use and very ergonomic. With this one right here, I find this comfortable to use, and because I haven't used it very much before, I'm kind of getting used to it still. And I'm finding my kind of rhythm with it, the angles that I use it at and how I use it. I think I started doing this right here, where I'm kind of bending it as I'm going down, okay? And I'm finding that the kind of circular movement works really well for this, okay? But as you can see, it's pretty good, and the one thing about this is I have to ink up much more because these little fibers, these are like hairs, okay? This is not like a sponge, okay? See these little fibers in here? I don't know what that is. I'm guessing it's some kind of synthetic. I don't think it's natural. I think it's a synthetic hair. So those, I mean, there is a little bit of capillary action, I'm guessing, in terms of going like this and some ink being transferred or absorbed into the head. I doubt if it's too much, but there's enough on there where it makes for a very nice and light application. But I have a feeling that I'm doing this, it's taking me longer with this than an absorbent sponge, okay? But hey, it doesn't mean you have to use one or the other. You can use both in conjunction with one another. You can use just these if you want to. But I'll tell you my thoughts as I go along, and like I said, I'm just getting used to it too, so whatever I say here I might not be applicable if I keep using this in the future, and I don't know, I might end up using it in a different way. So I would imagine this could be used too with like pan pastels and things like that. Just by dipping into it, rubbing it, and then rubbing it on like this, you can probably get this really kind of soft, light application. Okay, switching over to a deep lilac. It's a Marvy. Okay. I can barely see it. I think if I use the stylus, I might be transferring over more, but like I said, this isn't really too bad. It's not bad to kind of move in a much more gradual fashion. Right? I don't even know what this looks like when I'm doing it. It's like that. And I think I am using a little bit more force just for that same absorbency factor. Okay, it's not absorbing as much ink as a sponge would, Sponge is, sucking in a lot of that moisture coming off the pad, and, so I can actually transfer over like a puddle of ink if I wanted to, just by squeezing it out and dragging it around. But I mean, this isn't too long, in terms of the application process. Okay, here is pink. Now this is much more vivid and noticeable, of course. Okay. Now just from a lighting perspective, if you want certain things to remain nice and light and to have kind of a variation of intensity and contrast in here, then don't tone everything out, okay? That's the only thing you have to really kind of think about when you're doing lighting in scenes, okay? Just, you're controlling light through the use of shadow unless you're doing some kind of specialized technique where you're working on, I don't know, like black paper like I've done in the past, where we're defining light, you know, with the use of pigment ink, light, you know, colors. But this, you're defining light through the use of shadows, so, you know, just remember, if you want something to remain nice and light, like that nebula and the star, then don't tone them out. You can put a little bit of color in it, but, you know, use a nice light touch and kind of come into it with a more of a dry brushing effect, dry brush effect, or dry brush technique, I guess I should say, even more accurate. Okay, so adding more of this pink. This isn't the pink that I want it to look like, although you could just stop right there and get more of that real kind of whimsical kind of coloration here, you know, with some really super bright tones. But I want to go darker and darker here, so I am adding more of this, okay, in select areas. Where you add it isn't really important. It's just as long as you have some variation going on. You can have, you know, other areas, other clouds could have been lit up and certain ones dark. Okay, but going back to these, I'm having to work a little bit more. I think the ideal thing for this one to me would be to use it in conjunction with the Colorbox stylus tools, which I would, but I just want to make a point of the usage here. But I like the fact that I'm guessing these can be found worldwide, you know. Sometimes it's hard for people, you know, especially overseas or something like that, to find things like those stylus tools there. But these cosmetic industry things, like these sponges right here, these wedge, very dense sponges, work really nicely as well. These ones, you know, are a little bit more harder edged, you know, but I don't know, maybe you can kind of cut off some of these, you know, with a scissor and make it more rounded, you know, and kind of have this dauber. Very inexpensive, very accessible, and I don't know, they work very well. Things aren't quite as ergonomic as like a stylus tool, though, because a stylus tool fits like a, you know, like a pen or something in your hand. That's what it feels like, at least. Okay. All right. Hey, look at this. You know, if you're into percussion, maybe you can turn on the music and do something like this. I don't know. It seems like it works pretty good. And it's taken very little effort, just kind of wiggling this around like that. One of the things I like about this too is, you know, sometimes people say that they're getting these oval shapes everywhere from, you know, various applicators, whatever they're using, but this one, I don't know, it doesn't seem to, I guess it's because it's such a light application of it, you know, due to the shape of the, you know, the surface. It's just not giving me any kind of like hard edges. Darker you take your edges, the brighter the interior areas are going to seem. Let's go to magenta. I hardly ever use magenta, but let's use it in this one. It's not going to read as pure magenta in most cases, unless I just run it over the areas where there's pure pink. But where there's some of the, what did I use? Tea dye? The Distress Ink one? Can't even remember. It won't read as pure magenta, and where I overlap some of the blue, but it's nice, deep, very rich tone, very, very bright in intensity too. Okay. Come rubbing this around here and there. Maybe you have a different color for each brush, maybe? I don't know. I can't imagine these are hard to clean off, since if it's a synthetic fiber that we're using here. Should probably wash off just fine, you know, the water-based dye inks. Alright, kind of coming around, see that? Pretty fun. Alright, let's move on to the Prussian blue. Ooh, very, very dark. Yeah, this works very nicely. Maybe for your darker colors, maybe use like say a stylus tool or a sponge applicator for your first couple colors that, you know, are getting the most amount of coverage, and maybe you hit something like this for your darker ones. Who knows, you know? It's great for giving that little kind of soft vignette around the edge. Okay. Finding a really good application for this. You know, in addition to other coloring that you might do, but this works really well on the perimeter, you know. I like to make my perimeter areas darker to kind of frame off the scene. It kind of frames things with that darker edge. But it's a very soft one too, so I need to get in better position here. I'm finding I'm with the extra kind of use, and I'm pressing down on this a little bit harder than I would a stylus tool, just because of the amount of ink that it's carrying. But I find that my shoulder is getting a little tired, so that's not to say that these make your shoulder tired if you use them. I'm just having to consciously be aware of my position here, you know, in using this. So I want to use it in a position that's going to be nice and ergonomic, and when I do that, then see, I'm not taking any kind of, you know, not pressure, but I don't know, I guess impact in the rest of my arm. So find a good, you know, kind of ergonomic position to use something like this in. And then find your touch too. You don't always have to use it in the, you know, the one way that you started with. You know, you want to kind of constantly find that, you know, your groove with this, so that it's, you know, the most minimal kind of amount of movement that you're using for the kind of the result that you want. All right, now I'm going to clean this off because I want to use some blue in the seams. Let me see. I'm guessing, you know, the best way to clean this off would just be to take it under, you know, a sink. And is my water working here? Here we go. This is just water, plain water. I find that plain water works just fine in cleaning water-based inks. Okay, everyone always asks me. Not everyone. A lot of people. Because there are ink cleaners, okay? Or stamp cleaners. I just use water. I don't know if it gets it quite as clean as a stamp cleaner, a specific, you know, cleaner would, but it works good for me. Alright, so this is kind of giving an interesting look right here. There's your abstract piece here. Alright, so some blue here. Let's try this one out. This one's a Caribbean blue, so it has a little bit of a warmth to it. Let's give it a try. Let's add a little bit at a time. Yeah, very nice. It's kind of coming in. Let's zoom in a little bit here so you can kind of see it happen. Maybe this is really perfect for those kind of finishing touch things. You know, if you want a very small amount of something, it can add a nice feathery touch. See that starting to turn right there? Let's go down here. Let's add it in some of this pink area as well. Alright, let me try some different touches here. That tapping motion works pretty good. Okay, this wiping motion works really good too. I feel like it's like a broom or something like that. I'm kind of whisking instead of whisking away, I'm kind of applying, but I don't know. That's what kind of flashed before me in my head. Kind of cool, huh? Let me see. Alright, I need to stop this camera and change my exposure setting. When I work like this, the white of the paper when I first start off is a certain degree, so I kind of have to overexpose, but now we're into this darker thing, so this is a little bit overexposed. Okay, that's a little bit better. This is a little bit more true to the actual value of the original piece. Or at least I think so, as I look into the camera screen on the back. It has a, this tool has a pretty good look to it, doesn't it, in terms of the application. Alright, I'm having fun with it, obviously, so I don't know, I might be going a little overboard here, but alright. This is a blue. It's just called light blue. I was thinking about bringing this one into the violets. I don't know if I'd want a warm blue-ish, color, or too much of it in my purples, Maybe we could have tried and seen what it looked like, but... Okay. This has always been one of the brightest blues, the number 10 light blue. Similar color would be like a Mento Bahama blue. Not quite as bright, but pretty close though. Alright, Prussian blue. Let's go with a little bit of the Prussian blue again, just on the perimeter. If I already did use this one, I think I did. Alright, let's go with black, if I can find it. That's bottle green. Oh, okay. I don't know why I had it over on a different area of my desk. Let's try out the black in terms of creating a vignette. Looks pretty good in terms of my application. Pretty good, pretty good. It's adding in these very dark tones very easy. A second, I think I got a shipment of something. Okay, had to answer the door, and that was actually a signature release parcel for a broken laptop. Having a lot of problems with Mac products these days. Breaking down. It's almost part of the business model or something. Okay, making this darker. This works really fantastic for the vignette effect, Maybe use these things, like I said, for your darkest colors, and avoiding, the applicator shapes and whatnot. But look at that. That's a really nice soft touch around the border, isn't it? You know, in terms of that transition, you know, from dark to light. So, kind of looking like that hole, you know, in space or whatever, you know, going back into that deep space imagery. This one's using the Nebula. You can use the Milky Way. There's the Starbirth, which is one of my favorite ones. The Galaxy, Spiral Galaxy would be cool too. Any one of those would work just fine. There's Star Cluster. Moons or suns could be in here too. Okay. Alright, so there you have it. Transitions of colors. There's something I want to go. It's missing something though for me. Trying to decide. Maybe I'll try an additional pink or something like that. Look at this. Alright, this looks like it just cleans off just like this. Unless it's not clean. Okay, no, there is some black in there still. Alright, let me get it a little bit better. Let me see. As I do that, I look at, you know, as I tap this out, there's some blue on there too, so I don't know, I guess there is some color that kind of hide. Now it's violet. So it just comes to show, I guess this is kind of holding some of those other colors back in the fiber kind of cluster, kind of deeper in there maybe, than more than I thought. Oh, there's purple. It's like the kind of that hidden thing. You never know what you're, you know, going to reveal. It seems like all the colors that I used are still up in there somewhere. How much is on the surface though? I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be too much, I'm guessing. I don't know. There was a lot that kind of came out though. Okay, so let me try these other pinks here. Here's a rosemary. Actually, these are both rosemary. A little bit of a different color casing. This is where their cases did get a little bit different. This one's completely... someone smashed in. I didn't do that one. I think they did that at the convention. They smashed into my pad the last time. I kind of cringed, but it's still usable. Kind of. Yeah, that one seems a little bit dry. Okay, here's my other one. That's the way a pad should look. Ew, that one looks really new. I think maybe I had a new one still. Whew, boy, that is really bright. You see that pink there? Yeah. Just kind of layering that into this area, making the dark areas a little bit richer, I think, with that color. I wanted the intensity. I wanted this really to be glowing in some areas with a little bit more variation than I have, so let's add this in. If I add it everywhere, there won't be variation, but I don't know. Maybe I'll get some intensity going like that. Alright, that is that. Let's go back to that Distress Ink palette, I guess. Tea dye. Somewhere around here is my... Maybe I'll actually use some of the walnut stain as well. Alright, so tea dye, walnut stain, get well soon Tim Holtz. Saw that news of him and his surgery. I say that because it's his line of inks through Ranger. Okay, this is a little bit warmer, so I'm adding some warmer tinges in here. See that little tinge right there? it needed something of that sort in here. Kind of more of an earthy look, you know, to that color scheme, I think helped it. Kind of varied it a little bit more. Well, I don't know. At this point in time, do I need the walnut? Maybe. Let's test it. I don't know if I like it too much. I don't like it too much. So, you just don't add too much of it, okay? If you want to test something out, test it out, you know? Just go ahead and try it. I didn't really like it in there, so let's go over that with some more of the magenta. Okay, I didn't like that look right there. It's a little bit muddy looking. Sometimes when you add kind of warm over the top of, you know, neutral or cools, well, more cools, you know, mixing temperatures, sometimes it looks a little bit weird. Sometimes you can do it if you'd use it very lightly, minimally, but in terms of the intensity and hue, but sometimes when they're too close it looks a little bit weird. So there's a little bit of a brighter magenta there too. I think that looks pretty good. Let's do that in a couple areas here, just so that it's not so isolated and unique of a color in just one part of the scene. Alright, so that looks pretty good to me. In terms of variation, we have some, you know, different values working in here. Okay. Alright. So after a few minutes, I think I'm kind of used to this. I'm working in my kind of comfort zone in terms of the angle on my body, my tapping. But I was thinking about it a lot when I first started this scene off. You know, if they're about halfway, doesn't mean that you'll have to rethink it and reconfigure. I think, you know, muscle memory. So the next time I do this, I think I'll be fine. I was kind of working out of my my range. I was coming out here, so my shoulder was extended, but bringing it back here and kind of working, you know, around down here. It is a different movement, though, like I said, from what I'm used to, just because of the amount of ink this holds. But, you know, I mean, it's not like this took like 5 times extra or 2 times. I don't even think it took 2 times as long to ink this up to this degree. Okay, let's try some kind of overhanging branches here. It's one of my new leaf stamp. Hanging leaves, I think I call that, or yeah, something like that. I'll put all the names of everything below, as I always do. Alright, which way is this? Doesn't look up and down to me. It's too that dynamic. I like it. I think I like it better like outside. Like that, maybe. Or do I want it like that? I don't know, when I flipped it around like that, I thought that looks kind of interesting. You know, it goes from left to right. My inclination is to do this. But I think I want to do this. I don't know why. It looks a little bit different to me like that. Okay, now we have a lot of bold, dark colors going on in the background here. So I'm going to use my Versafine black. Versafine black is just going to give me the strongest, deepest, darkest black. It's almost three-dimensional sometimes. I guess on a microscopic level it is, because the dye-based inks are staining the paper, the pigment inks kind of sit on the surface of the paper, or they do, they don't absorb in, and it can potentially give me kind of the darkest impression. Now I did use some of that Marvy black on my corners, right? And not all of the ink transferred because it was just so wet, but this is, you can see just how dark this is. It really stands out, you know, against the background. See that? it's also wet right now, so when it dries, it might be a little bit lighter. But I don't think so. I think pigment inks just seem to stay the value that they looked when it was stamped, you know, when wet. Okay. So I'm kind of doing this curtain of leaves here, overhanging leaves. Like that. Like I said, it's kind of more of a whimsical looking composition than, you know, something, I don't know, in reality. Okay, so I do have this bold eagle flying, and I wanted to use this, but maybe I'll do it in a Marvy black, something that will, I mean, I could do it in Versafine, I think that'd look cool too, but I'm going to do this one in the Marvy black, just so it kind of maybe sits back into the scene in terms of distance a little bit more. It'll look very black when I first stamp it out, but I think it'll dry a little bit lighter in appearance, so. Okay, I think about right here maybe. Have them going in front of the nebula a little bit. It's like it's kind of coming in from the darkness into the light, you know, or in front of it. Okay, something like that. Maybe I'll stamp some sort of a saying down here in white on dark. I don't know. I'll take a look, but let's go in and add some special effects into the scene now. Special effects mean just, you know, some embellishment. All right, this is a white paint, white gel pen. Let's say white paint pen. I always say that. I said that for years with these paint pens that we used to use before gel pens were invented. So I don't know. I said it so many times. Paint pen. In workshops and demonstrations and whatnot. Can't get it out of my vocab. Okay, so I'm going back in and adding some additional stars, not just over areas that I lost them, you know, from the initial impression, but you know, some of them are tinted out, but it just looks more dimensional this way because we have some stars that are white against stars that are colored in with whatever color that I've applied over the nebula impression. You can see on this one here there are stars, you know, in here, but and then I've toned some of them out, but you can still see them in the impression here, but they're just darker, so this is a way to go back in and add them back in here so you see you have layered texture in the form of these dots. Stars, whatever they would represent. This would be an interesting thing to kind of do a splatter painting across this, you know. Having it look like maybe some stars are coming out from the, you know, the background to the foreground. And, I don't know, really pushing the whimsical kind of idea of it. Okay, this one is a pink Uniball Signo pens. Work pretty good. I don't get too much clogging with them. And then this other real cheap set that I have, it has 180 colors. By Shuttle Art, I've never had any clogging with any of those, so I do think that just in general, I haven't tried tons of different brands or anything like that, but it just seems like they've got that issue that was very present with so many different brands of gel pens, and with them clogging or just not working after a few usages. It seems like they have that kind of resolved, so that is really good for us. And you see those different little, let me try to zoom in a little bit more. I gotta bring my crank down on my tripod, but those multi-tones in here, it's kind of fun in terms of a little additional effect. Alright, now let's do something here. Let's have some of these stars coming out. You know, normally I would do like, or not normally, but a lot of times I do like light beams or something like that, or something with the pigment inks. Let's do something with that, but let's, you know, instead of like a solar, you know, flare, like a camera lens flare, you know, from sunlight, I guess it could be moonlight, any kind of light. Let's do it with stars, like they're coming out like this. So see, they're a little bit more dense in here and concentrated, closer together, and as they move out, I'm kind of spacing them out. Maybe I'll give a little bit of a larger dot, so I do a little circle like that. Let's do something like here, like it's kind of, you know, just stars are kind of streaming out. I have this one stamp called Star Birth, but this is kind of giving the idea that maybe like these stars are coming out, you know, like that. It could be a solar, you know, lens flare too, like I said, but I don't know. I like this idea of kind of emanating light. Yeah, it's kind of coming from, you know, within and flooding out like this. Alright, let's get a little bit more bold with some bigger ones out here. So it looks like it's kind of coming towards you. See that? Alright, let's kind of enhance this idea, or not enhance, but can't remember the name, the word I'm looking for. Alright, I'm not even going to bother thinking about it, but, you know, making that idea a little bit stronger. Okay, let's do it with some of the Colorbox Frost White Pigment ink, okay? It's a slow-drying pigment ink. Alright, there we go, focus done. Frost White, Colorbox. Nice and slow-drying. It's not going to take forever, you know, with the way that I use it. I'm just using a very small, you know, thin layer of it. I'll show you what I'm doing right here. I'm tapped in, okay. My pad right here. There's a lot of ink on here, so I'm going to blot it off first. I'm blotting it off on this black impression here, just so you can see, but I'm kind of smashing the tip here and making the tip a little bit, I don't know, here I need to unravel it a little bit more to make it even softer. It's a little hard. But I'm kind of tapping this off and smashing the tip somewhat so that when I apply it on here, it won't be so stiff, and tapping it off will give me kind of a dry brush application of this, you know, given ink. Alright, so on some of these larger balls here, you can do it on smaller ones too if you want to, but see, I'm kind of tapping this in like that. It's giving me that nice glowing little light. Does that look like it's glowing? It's nice and soft too. And it looks like light emanating from that dot. And that's where you get this kind of little really whimsical feel, I think. And it's also an area in this whole thing that has a softer look, so you've added this textural contrast with everything that's going on in the scene, or, you know, most of the rest of it at least. So from a textural standpoint, you've expanded the visual language of your given piece by adding a little bit of that soft aspect of it. And it looks like light too, doesn't it? You know, little glowing little spheres. Okay, let's add some more of those little things in the background as well. We'll say that this is kind of softer light back here, so I'll tap a few of it, you know, around here. I'm going to soften up that impression. It's hard to say because it's very light back there and just kind of tapping thin layers of white into dark. Where the light does meet dark, let's see on this wing of this eagle here. Put a little bit of a soft light on that side of the eagle facing that light, so it looks like light is hitting that wing there. How about this bottom wing too, like that? See that? Okay, and we have this nebula and star. Let's do the star around here a little bit lighter and make it, you know, try to make it glow a little bit more. Put some on these clouds facing the light. Sometimes I add too much, so I just kind of tap it off a little bit and it'll come right off. Putting some of my clouds up top there. So this is what it kind of looks like overall. It's kind of a fun scene, you know, when you kind of mix, I don't know, you tweak the kind of the theme or content, you know, instead of doing, you know, the Milky Way up here, we've done this, you know, thing that would represent a much deeper space figure and a much larger scale in the form of this nebula. There's galaxies and whatnot. All kinds of different things you can do. Okay, I think that looks about right for me. Well, okay, I changed my mind. Let's add a few little these glowing dots, or stars or whatever, to some of these dots right here. Okay. Alright, there you have it. I'm not sure if I'll do a saying in here. I might. There's really a nice spot for a quote there or something. Let me see if I see something. If not, I'll just leave it as it. Okay, I think there's a couple good candidates in this sheet right here. This is Scenic Sentiment sheet number 6, but there's silence. Night music would be really good with this one. Dream would be a good one, I think. So let's see, silence. Night would be cool. I kind of like the serifed font here. Dream would be a good one. I spent so long working on the spacing in between all the letter forms of this these stamps here, these words. I thought, okay, you know, I'm going to do this collection of words, but my lettering and typography class came back from college, and I spent forever. I took it with one of the most intense instructors because he was the head of the graphic design program. So, and he was a graphic designer, and he was known for being one of the toughest teachers, you know, in the whole arts and design department, being the head. And yeah, you just didn't want to. You really wanted to do well in that class. So, I mean, like a micro-millimeter of spacing in between letter forms was really, really important, you know, to graphic designers. So, Alright, I'm putting this on an angle. It's not really a great one to, you know, word stamp to, I don't want to get this crooked, but... Okay, let me see if I can get this straight enough. Alright, I'm using a brilliance pad. If it gets a little crooked, so be it. You know, it's not the end of the world. I'll do a test print, though. Okay. Alright, now this is going to be a little bit more translucent than opaque, okay? But I'm fine with that if this is a little bit kind of see-through. I think it would kind of, I don't know, merge, blend in, whatever, with the scene. If that happens. Okay. Oh, not too bad. I was a little bit concerned. I mean, we do want it fairly straight, but if it doesn't come out straight, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really sweat it. I think stamping, for me, kind of agonizing about, you know, perfect alignment or something like that. It would be my preference, but if I did that across everything that I ever do, in terms of the you know, the usage of the stamps, I don't know. It would just, it's not that important to me. Where I agonize, you know, a lot about every little tiny thing is in when I'm working on the designs. Like in these leaves right here, I have like tiny little insect bites on them where they have little holes in them actually, and like where I actually put those little holes on everyone. You know, I wanted this exact branch to be perfectly in balance, and you don't want to put too many holes on some leaves and not enough on others. That's where I really agonize over that, because I want my designs perfect, so when people use them, they're a lot farther ahead, you know, in terms of you know, kind of having a really great piece. Just right to begin with, and then what you do with them, you know, certainly is where the artistry comes in, you know, how you use the stamps. But, you know, using a positioner for this, if it's convenient for you and, you know, it's really fast for you to do, then, yeah, by far, you know, why not use it? But for me, like I said, I'm glad it didn't come out at a 45-degree angle, but I don't think that's going to happen. But anyways, I like that little word stamp there. I do like the combination of text and visuals, graphics, you know. I think it looks really good in a finished piece, you know. Image and copy, I guess you can say. I want to do a couple more dots out this way, I think. You know, to kind of lead the viewer's eye like that. I think it'd be kind of cool. Let me use a little bit more of that pigment ink then. So those dots, it's kind of coming out this way now. Let me see if I can just use the residual ink on here. Yeah, there's still enough ink on here. Like I said, you want it to, you know, real dry brushed type of application of your ink. Alright, so here we go here. And you have, oh, maybe that's the title of the piece now. When you have text in there, it's quite typical to, you know, title your piece the, you know, whatever the word stamp is. So this one is thus called Silence. All right, I hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks again to the stamper that gave me this. I think those color applications work just great. I think I would use it in conjunction with, you know, a sponge applicator, just so I can get those early, very widely applied inks, base foundation inks down first, and then I would come into something like this. Works really great on my perimeter. Although I can do, you know, I've done the perimeters with this before, and it no problem at all. But this one's really nice, you know, it just kind of taps in there, and you don't have to worry about, you know, any type of harsh marks. But I like the soft application of it. I think it looks great in the end result here. So, let's see. Yeah, I think that's done. Fun scene. Kind of a little bit of a sense of whimsy and whatnot. And, I don't know, a lot of bright, nice, deep, saturated tones. Thanks for watching. Drop us a note in the comment section if you have any questions, or visit our website at Stampscapes.com for more information on the entire line and other informations on how to use them.